I think this is quite a revolution to have a scholarship, a registered, established scholarship for students who work for the abolition of psychiatry with no compromise. This is the work, this is the revolution, and here's the support for the revolution. Even though they say the revolutions are not funded, Bonnie Burstow decided to fund the revolution.
First and foremost, the Dr. Bonnie Burstow Scholarship in Antipsychiatry is a scholarship that has been set up at University of Toronto primarily, or initially at least, for OISE students, and OISE students who are doing master's or doctoral theses in the area of antipsychiatry. It is the first such scholarship anywhere in existence, so this is really history in the making. I should add that it is also unusual in another way in that it's a matching scholarship. So I'm matching up to $50,000 of what other people put in. And so in this way, it's a participatory scholarship that anybody who wants to can participate in creating this and making this real and making this substantial. So what is antipsychiatry? Well, if you ask different people at different times, they would have given you fairly different answers. And so I just want to briefly take you through that. The word was originally invented by a colleague of R.D. Laing who worked with R.D. Laing called David Cooper. And before you knew it, the whole coterie of people surrounding Laing were all using the word. And Cooper meant it in a more political social movement type of way, somewhat. Laing meant it more existentially in terms of an existential therapy he was offering that was different than the biological stuff that was happening around him. Both were greatly influenced by Jean-Paul Sartre, and the stuff is interesting. Some of us use it to some degree, but it's not what's mainly influencing stuff today. In the meantime, a whole group of other people also became involved. Thomas Saz was also big, started to be big in the 50s, huge name. And there's Bassaglia in Italy, and there's Foucault in France. Now, these people all had takes on some very substantial things that were wrong with psychiatry. Foucault was more political than most of them and was looking and calling for something that was a little closer to what Cooper was calling for, which was the insurrection of subjugated knowledge. That is, well, he didn't use the term antipsychiatry. He was looking for a movement from below more than a movement from above, which is surely where Laing was, and to a degree Cooper was too. The survivor movement got really going in the 80s, actually, and a lot of it took up antipsychiatry, taking up Saz, not so much taking up Laing, taking up Foucault. And it dates back way before this to people, to a century before, where survivors were saying, we have to revolt against this system, where they were taking things to court, etc. Now, today, if you asked antipsychiatry people what they stood for, they would certainly mention human rights. But that is not what distinguishes antipsychiatry people from critical psychiatry, because both are saying there's a fundamental problem with human rights in the psychiatric system. What distinguishes antipsychiatry today is the calling for the abolition of psychiatry, the gradual erosion of psychiatry. For antipsychiatry people see it as an unacceptable institution. What abundant articles, research, and analysis has shown is not a single one of the tenets of psychiatry have a foundation. In other words, all are foundationless. So it would be one thing. Now, the fact that it's foundationless is a problem in itself, but it's one thing if it were foundationless and it actually helped people. That, however, is exactly the opposite of what has been shown. On a more profound level, it is important because it breaks the total stranglehold, and it really is a stranglehold. It starts breaking the stranglehold because it's a long process that the drug company money and the money by the psychiatric industry have over this whole area, including academic psychiatry, which is huge. What we have is bad research right now driving out good. What we need is good research driving out bad.
I think it also adds credibility from an activist perspective. It also legitimates the anti-psychiatry movement. and it follows the feminist and anti-colonial movements, which are allies to us.
Yeah, I agree, Rebecca. I agree, and I think it has really strong implications for, like anti-racism studies and studies in
Gender.
yeah, gender, sexuality, ageism, all of that. I mean, if you look at psychiatry, is inherently oppressive in a number of ways: gender, age, sex, sexuality, culture. So people undertaking anti-psychiatry scholarship definitely talk back to those discourses and those oppressions. And of course, this scholarship gives support to that sort of reversal of that oppressive discourse.
When you have a scholarship, an area gets recognized. Anti-psychiatry has been a formidable area of scholarship for over half a century, but never really recognized. However, you cannot have a scholarship given in an area without that area being recognized. So it accomplishes something in the recognition of knowledge that is very important. It means a win for academic freedom, because let me be very clear, people were not grasping, were not enormously eager to have me create this scholarship. This is an area where resistance happens and where you expect resistance, and where there's unheard of resistance when you're giving money. And so how did this scholarship get through? On the concept of academic freedom, and whenever that happens, a victory has happened. It's also very important for students doing research in this area. I don't know if most people think a lot about students doing research, but students come to do theses, and they depend with very little money often to be able to get scholarships. Maybe their second year, maybe their third year in a doctoral program. And the chances, if they're in this area of anti-psychiatry, they'll get scholarships, is very low. Why? Because there's a bias against the area. So in the name of equity, that these students had some chance of getting scholarships, or at least better than a snowball's chance in hell of getting scholarships, it was very important that there be such a scholarship. This was one way of addressing this.
For me personally, why I'm so excited about this scholarship is that I've firsthand experienced the kind of pushing out of critical work, and it's around SSHRC funding versus CIHR funding. So if you're even using the language that psychiatry has, owned, you're then moved into CIHR health funding research, and then you have to play their game, and they're not very open to anti-psychiatry work or even work that's critical of psychiatry. So I think this is an opportunity to really foster PhD and master level education in this field, because as students we need to be funded, and it's easier to sometimes move the other way, right? And be like, okay, maybe I will soften my critiques in order to fit within this SSHRC field or the CIHR field.
Exactly. There's no softening of any critique, right? So it's pretty fantastic. I'm really excited about this scholarship, and I've talked to Bonnie myself and told her how excited I am and how indeed revolutionary it is. It's kind of surreal, actually, because this has never happened before. So this really marks a point in history where anti-psychiatry scholarship is going to be funded forever out of OISE. Like, this has never happened before. So, materially, it's money. It's money for the student who needs the money, who otherwise would come up, against a financial barrier to, access education, higher learning, right? So
it goes beyond that funding. It lends credibility. So you're like, we're supported by this scholarship that's supported by the University of Toronto, right?
Exactly. So it gives it that sort of legitimacy that other discourses have. So it's pretty damn fantastic.
What we have here is a single professor with a handful of different students, and a whole large group of psychiatric survivors with very little power wanting this scholarship against the multinational pharmaceuticals, academic psychiatry, etc. on the other side. This is a David and Goliath story, and it is one we're going to win. But you get a chance to be part of winning that. Anyone who contributes gets a chance to be part of that. Anyone who contributes in any way. Psychiatric survivors also very clearly benefit because this validates things they've been saying for a long, long time. Antipsychiatry scholarship does that because truth is actually keeps being found to be on their side.
It allows to have a conversation about how to cultivate a world where we create a community and we care for each other as human beings rather than downloading responsibility for problems in living onto the individual.
Finally, though, let me say we all benefit. Insofar as we can get at truth, insofar as we can open up and make visible knowledge that has been buried, that has been made invisible because of untruths that have been spread, insofar as we can then change the world so people are not being treated for diseases that don't exist and are helped in ways that are helpful rather than being given diseases, because the treatments do actually create bona fide diseases, then we're living in a better world. If together, and certainly antipsychiatry is not only trying to take down psychiatry, but to construct something better, insofar as we can create a better world where people are more respected, where there's room to be different, where help that they want is available rather than help they don't want, then we all benefit because that's a much better world for all of us to be living in.
I am really proud of Dr. Burstow. I admire her tenacity and resilience in making this scholarship happen.
And I also admire her resistance. She herself is personification of revolution. This is what I have seen of her. And this is her whole life actually packed in a package to students for future work. And I think there's nothing more beautiful than that.